So tell me about the installation for this exhibition.
Well, I was given this space that runs approximately 60 feet. I measured. One wall was 40, another one is 20 feet long. So it's pretty long space, and it's stretched. It's sort of like really is stretched geometrically, this long rectangular shape. So as I was working on sketches, brainstorming ideas, I really wanted to deal with, actually was orchestrating visual narrative, trying to build the drawing that has an instant impact on a viewer, so it sort of acts as a whole. When you see it, it has sort of like one direct impact on a viewer. At the same time, because of this stretched space and the shape in itself, it really had to involve some kind of like visual narrative. So where it starts, how it flows, the speed of looking, that was really what interested me. I had viewer in mind, as I work with a piece, physical relationship with the work is really crucial. So how it's observed here with, big house, where I started on that side and developed from right to left. You sort of look up, the house is lifted a little bit, it sort of like levitates upwards, and as you go around, your eyes and your body shifts down with the next house, and the third house goes even deeper. I was really interested in that visual flow, how you look, but you also physically feel the piece. And on the wall, with the corner, it sort of all disappears. This pictorial, representational imagery disappears, becomes like really abstract piece. And it's a challenge, like this, dealing with narrative generally, because I don't want it to be a story. I'm really not interested in a narrative that refers to sort of that traditional narrative from Renaissance or 19th century that has specific story behind it and beginning, a sort of climatic moment and the end. I'm really interested in somehow, I'm not sure if I'm succeeding, I'm still dealing with it, that's why I'm doing it. It's a challenge, and how I can draw and develop visual narrative and yet suggest time after that. So it's like open-ended narrative. Charcoal itself is very unstable medium, and that's why I use it, because it sort of in itself has that sense of instability and movement. I do sort of push it with brushing it down to suggest displacement, so it's just that moment of being displaced. I'm really interested in that very specific moment in between. It's hard to tell, like if it's falling apart or it's being built, if it's playful or if it's conflict, and constantly as I work, it's sort of shifting between, like when it's too pictorial, too representational, or if it's too abstract. I'm really interested in that thin line to be in between.
Have you always worked on such a large scale?
No. Actually, working on installation, it's been close to 3 years. And most of my work before that was sort of like 40 inches by 40 inches square format on a paper and paintings. So yeah, that definitely changed thinking of visual language as developing piece. The physical, again, relationship with the viewer is what is part of this installation-based work, and it just makes it more complex. Thinking of a whole space at the same time is like working on really small patch of charcoal. So,
does the temporary nature of the work interest you as well, that at the end of this exhibition we'll just have to
that's best part of it. Absolutely best part of it. it just feels great. You know, I come with a box of charcoal, I come with a box of like acrylic paint, and that's it. I sort of feel like a dinosaur a little bit, just going with this old medium. But then just, yeah, the fact that it will be painted over and that's done feels good. I don't have to come back and install it. But also there is a different, another thing that I think it was Jonathan Borowski in his interview. He said that his installations are gone, they're not preserved, but they still exist somewhere between layers of paint. So it's still there. It's kind of nice to think it that way too.
How much is planned before you come into a space? I know you start with some rough sketches, but how much do you change kind of along the way?
Yeah, that's a really great question, because it has to be responsive to the space itself. So just being in a space, like I knew 2nd Street Gallery from before, and I am familiar with sort of space structure itself. I had floor plan, and I would do a little bit of brainstorming. Like if it's corner, I really love to work with corners. It somehow engulfs the viewer. It just gives more sense of this space that surrounds the viewer. But you know, all the drawings and sketches that happened before don't necessarily follow, like I don't follow them exactly. It's really important to be in the space, and I don't know, it's the mood I'm in. You know, if I had a lot of coffee, I'll be like, you know, a little more hectic, or just, it's important to just really be present and respond to the space itself. So it's a little bit of both. There is a little bit of planning, but not really as a structured plan to follow.
You talk about the houses that are represented. Tell me a little bit about the significance of that for you, and maybe what you hope the viewer sees in that as well.
Yeah, for me it's important that personal experiences of being from Bosnia, being somehow displaced, and the fact that I've been here for 10 years now, my relationship to homeland changed, and it's reflected in the work. My previous work was quite nostalgic. It has this more recognizable Bosnian landscape in it. And now it's still important that I have image of a house I grew up in, or village where I spent summers, and memories of space, of garden, open window, fence. Land itself is important just to trigger my imagination to structure space a little bit, like how houses are placed, the shapes of them, the fence around. So it's very important for me. It's not really, I don't really care if, I mean, viewer can't really know that. I don't think it's that obvious, but it's something that is important for me too. Lately I've been thinking of village itself as a metaphor, more as for this unstructured space that grows spontaneously, and there's no hierarchy in it, so it sort of spreads very unpredictably. So, you know, that relationship to village is not so personal anymore. I'm thinking more in terms of metaphorically as just a sort of symbol for freedom itself. You know, it really connects to the process of drawing. It parallels how drawing process is very circular and like something like linear and curves. It comes back and it expands. It's unpredictable in itself. So I think village and drawing, they kind of like work together as a process and a subject matter.
What do you see yourself working on next? Are you continuing this kind of format in future installations, or do you have new work that you're thinking of that will change a little bit?
Yeah, it's still, you know, it's a good question, because I always, you know, this effect of three-dimensional quality to two-dimensional medium is something that sort of fascinates me still. Every time I brush down, like, and it turns into this object, is like still something that fascinates me. Like, wow, it worked again. I don't know how long it will last. It's hard to tell. I think I'll keep dealing with it for a little bit. longer. Like I would love to experiment with spaces that are more tall, like maybe stretched vertically, just to see how that would affect it. But I am painting still on canvas and doing smaller scale drawings, and we'll see. Maybe some objects will come in. I've been contemplating, but I think I'll stick with it for a little bit longer.